What's up, everybody? It's Pikel with League of Items, and today we are going to do a little bit of learning, and we're going to remember last year's World Championship and try to not repeat some of the mistakes and try to not read too much into certain parts of it. So let's start off with a quote. I don't know who the originator of this quote is, but apparently it's George Santayana or Winston Churchill or someone else, and they both stole it. It's all very possible. But the saying is, those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Now, you may be asking yourself, Pikel, we're talking about esports here. Why do I need to understand history? Well, you need to understand history because we are beings who live through time. And as time builds on itself and we have multiple occurrences of the same type of event, there are groups out there who are learning and building up their experience, building up a knowledge base, and are using that time over time and getting better. Having a process makes you better, as long as your process isn't inherently flawed. I think that's pretty straightforward, not very controversial, but I always say stuff like that, and I'm shocked by the responses that I get. But let's talk about Worlds, right? So a lot of these teams from Worlds were in the World Championship last year. So first, let's take a look at some of the teams. So I'll get the main event open as well. And I should probably also get 2021 Worlds. All right, so some of these teams were here last year, and it's important to realize, what kind of narratives are helping shape people's perceptions of these teams, because a lot of people haven't thought about Psg Talon for months, if not a year, right? Some people haven't thought about Unicorns of Love for a year, basically. So some of these players were at Worlds last year. Let's just start with Worlds 2020, and then we'll go back into the betting odds that are live right now, and we'll discuss that. So last year, going into the play-in stage, everybody was pretty high on LGD. Everybody was pretty high on Mad Lions, Team Liquid, and just people assumed that it would be very straightforward. They would get through. Brazil would be bad. Those were the expectations. A team like Psg Talon did a lot in the play-in stage to improve how people thought of them, and one of the main reasons why that happened is because they had to use a bunch of subs because of COVID. So let's go through the rosters that were there last year. LGD had Longshi, Peanut, Xie, Kramer, Mark. Peanut, super good jungler, carry-oriented jungler. Last year's meta was perfect for them because they could really create a differential in the jungle, and then their team would benefit from that greatly. Xie, very good mid laner, was really held back by Longshi and Kramer, in my opinion. I know some people think that Kramer's good. Kramer's really bad. Kramer is bad relative to what people think Kramer is or what Kramer used to be. Kramer significantly held back LGD at Worlds. He's the kind of player that when their team is winning, they can get a couple of kills and look like they're good, but at the end of the day, they're not contributing to the winning difference, and in my opinion, those are bad players. Is Kramer a better League of Legends player than I am? Yes, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're comparing professionals to professionals, and in my opinion, Kramer is really probably the main reason why LGD struggled at Worlds last year. Mad Lions, we had Arome, Shadow, Humanoid, Karzi, Kaiser, so 3/5 of the team is the same. The coach is the same. Shadow was scapegoated People were just basically blaming Shadow for the bad Worlds performance. Shadow went to China and played pretty well in China, so it's not an issue of talent. Shadow is definitely a talented enough player to be on a top team in Europe, definitely in the LCS, and played well in China. That's really the most important thing. I can't stress that enough. So Arome was really the problem at Worlds last year. He just created impossible situations for their team because they were not able to play carry champions effectively. So they were often put in a very bad spot in the draft, and other teams were able to beat them because of it. People were very disappointed with Mad Lions in general. I understand why, and we'll talk about their matchup with Supermassive, which I think people just misremember. Like they weren't a bad team. Like Supermassive was not going to be an easy team to beat. Team Liquid won me 20 grand last year, so thank you, Team Liquid. Impact, Broxa, Jensen, Tactical, Core JJ. It was like just a lesser version of the team that they have right now. Impact and Broxa, I'd much rather have Alfari and Santorin, so that's a good upgrade for them. The difference is that Team Liquid won't be in the play-ins, right? They'll just be straight into the main event. So we're not going to be able to get a lot of value out of them, I think, unfortunately. PSG, Hanabi is still there. Now they have a different jungle and different mid, as well as a different AD carry, I believe. And then Kai Wing is still there. So good players for their region, but the reason why people have such a high opinion of PSG Talon is because nobody expected them to play as well as they did in the play-in stage last year. In the main event, we'll get to that later. They really didn't play that well. And obviously the competition is better, but guess what? This year they're not in the play-in stage. They're just in the main event. So the first time that we see PSG, we're going to have these high expectations. They played really well, and then they get slapped around. That's very possible. And I know that the upgrades that they made to their roster might mitigate some of that, but we have to be very skeptical, I think, if we want to be correct ultimately, which is what we should want. INTZ, Tay, Shinny, Envy, Macau, Redbird, they didn't play well. Boss, Ahaha Sick. I know it's Anana Sick. I call him Ahaha Sick because that's just a better name objectively. No Man's Gadget, Santos. They had a good performance last year. I do like Unicorns of Love in general. I think that Ahaha Sick was specifically impressive at last year's Worlds. I don't think that they're going to be able to replicate that performance for the same reason, because we do get them in the play-in stage, so they might be very competitive in the play-in stage and be able to do some damage there. Paz, Buggy, Ace, Archer, Reyna. Nope. Don't really remember anything from them, and they played poorly. Rainbow 7. So, again, last year, we had a jungle carry meta. Jose Deodo was put in spots where they could succeed, turned that into an LCS contract. Good for you. Ultimately, I think that it was a mistake going out and spending on Jose Deodo. Maybe he turns into something, but, just overrated, honestly, at this point. Legacy, Tapoon, Babip, Tally, Raze, and Isles. So Raze came over to the LCS, played okay, but not great. And again, it's the same thing. You see these people at international competitions. You're like, oh my god, wow, they made it to Worlds. They have all this experience. Let's bring them to North America. And then they just fall on their face. It's not like he played bad in North America. It's just I don't know what people really expected. I don't know what they expected. And then Supermassive. Supermassive was, they only went 2-2, but they did beat Mad Lions in this matchup, and then they lost against Unicorns of Love, and that was a big surprise to me. I'm pretty sure that I was all over Supermassive because I love Cacao, and people forget this is the team that knocked out Mad Lions in the play-in stage. So they have Armut. Armut obviously is at least league average top laner in the LEC. So good player, better than Arome, just straight up was a better player than Arome. Shadow against Cacao. Cacao is just a better player than Shadow was at that point in time. Cacao was one of the best junglers in the history of League of Legends. You can't just discount that because he's a little bit older now. super good player, extremely talented, extremely experienced, just an amazing player. So when you have a top lane advantage and one of the best junglers of all time, it's going to be a tough team to beat. It's just the expectations for Mad Lions were so ridiculous. So you're kind of just stuck at that point. Bolulu, Zeitnot, they're okay players. They're really not the heartbeat of the team. Cacao is the most important player on this team, and it's the same reason that Peanut is the most important player for their team. They're carry players. They can put their teammates into situations where they have advantages, and then their teammates are allowed to pop off. But without Cacao and without Peanut, those plays would not be available to them. And then Snowflower had a good tournament last year as well. Oh yeah, Kongyu and Uniboy. Yep. Okay. All right, so that was basically the play-in stage. Yeah, LGD scared us there for a second, but they managed to make it all the way through. So let's go to the main event, and then we'll end up in this year's tournament. So we had, Suning, G2, Team Liquid, Machi. I feel like people were sort of high on Machi because they saw PSG do well, and they just were like, oh, well, if PSG can do it, so can they. But Suning was a team that I was super high on last year. SFM was interesting because he wasn't a true carry jungler, but he played against it pretty well. Bin, very talented top laner, played a very good Camille, and had a lot of good matchups, was a true carry top laner. So instead of having a carry jungler, they had a carry top laner. Angel, I've never really been a huge fan of Angel, but at Worlds last year, Angel really showed a lot in terms of how great they could be. But they benefited a lot from the meta and being able to play champions that are not really as they're not known commodities. And the other thing is that they had Huanfeng and they had Sword Art. So I don't know why it's saying on, but Huanfeng and Sword Art, they were a very good bot lane. They were one of the best bot lanes at the tournament, due in large part to Huanfeng. I think that Huanfeng is, if Huanfeng was back at Worlds this year, my reasoning for liking them is very similar to my reasoning for liking Gen G. When you have an extremely talented, mechanically gifted hyper carry player, then you just have types of plays, types of games and drafts that are available to you and good for you that are not good for other teams. Because anybody can draft a hyper carry, but you need to play around it the right way, and your player needs to be able to take the game on their back. They ended up not utilizing that at Worlds last year. They played a lot of Jhin and utility AD carries, and they would just create early game advantages, and then just snowball those. Very good performance from them last year. I loved Suning. They were my dark horse going into the tournament, and they did very well. They came in second place. G2 played pretty well last year. Their group not super difficult. Team Liquid played okay. This is about as good as you could expect a team from North America to do against G2 and against Suning, in my opinion. Other people may have had higher hopes, but, just not reasonable, I don't think. And then, like we said, Machi didn't do too well. Damwon, the eventual champions, had Noguri instead of Khan. They were pretty dominant throughout the tournament, if we're being honest. JDG, Zoom, Kanavi, Yagao, Loken, Lumao. Really solid team. Yagao and Loken were very overrated at this point last year, which is one of the reasons why I was upset with having to not bet against JDG, but tempering my expectations, because I knew that even though they were a very good team, in China, just the possibility of them, making a deep run was going to be difficult. Because even though they had Zoom and Kanavi, it really wasn't a Kanavi meta last year. Kanavi's a really good jungler, but not with the champions that were very popular, which kind of just sucked. Then we have PSG. So PSG's previous... This is not the accurate roster. I do think that River Maple are upgrades, and did they have Unified? And they had Unified. Phone's blowing up. So yeah, so the thing with PSG is they went 2-4 at this point in the tournament. So they lost both of their games to to Damwon Gaming, which is expected. They did take a game off of JDG, which I think was kind of a fluke. Not that it's a fluke. Any team can beat any other team. They just so happen to beat JDG on stage. And I know people are going to say, "Oh, well, you're not giving them enough credit for their victory," but that's the kind of mentality that's going to get me to keep my expectations really low for Psg Talon, especially because we're not going to see them until the group stage. If they get into a really easy group, then yeah, I'm going to say, okay, Psg Talon either can come in second or something like that. Like it's definitely possible, but it's going to depend on which teams they're up against. And I feel like a lot of people, no matter what group they're in, are going to say, "Oh, PSG sleeper, they can do really well at Worlds." And I mean, I do like River and I do like Maple. I think that could outweigh the that could eliminate the edge that I'm kind of seeing right now, because if it is a big enough upgrade, then they're just a completely different team. And then Rogue played not well at Worlds, and it was a tough spot for them because you're going up against Damwon and JDG. At that point, Rogue really depended on Inspired to make a lot happen last year, and he just ran into Canyon and Kanavi. Like, what are you can't even do anything about that. You can't feel mad about that one. Just super unlucky. Genji went 5-1 last year in their group. They're probably going to go 5-1 or 6-0 again this year. Super good team. I don't know why people are like low on them right now, or why the sports books are low on them right now. It just seems like a huge blind spot for a lot of people. Fnatic had a pretty good tournament last year. Fnatic went 1-1 against Genji, which that was a super important game. I think that was a high pressure situation, and Fnatic was able to pull that off. That was pretty impressive. But that was with Reckless, Self-Made, Whippo. Like, it was a different roster, and I do think that their current iteration is weaker than their team from last year. That's just my opinion. I know people freak out whenever I say anything negative about a European team, but that's my opinion. I don't know what to tell you. LGD was pretty disappointing for me in this spot. I thought that LGD had a good shot to come out of this group, but they just weren't able to put it together. They kind of struggled throughout the tournament. Lost both of their games to Genji, and I'm 99% sure that one of those games they just completely threw away. So they could have easily been like 4-2, and try to force some kind of playoff. And then Group D. Man, I loved DRX last year. DRX was such a fun team. They had such a good roster, and they just blew it up. Just pretty wild. Top Esports, a lot of people's favorite to win the tournament last year, got knocked out by Sunning. DRX, they had Piosik, they had Chovy, Deft. It was pretty wild. FlyQuest, oh my god. The fact that FlyQuest won 3 games last year is just insane. Who they beat? They beat Unicorns of Love twice, and they beat fucking Top Esports. So insane. And then Unicorns of Love got slapped around once they got into the playoffs, into the actual main event, which is not surprising. The level of competition, when the level of competition steps up, you got to put up or shut up, and they got shut up. Let's crack open a seltzer. I need to stay hydrated. I am not hydrated right now. Ah, man. Late night. Tiebreaker. Sunning won the tiebreaker against G2. Top Esports beat Fnatic 3-2. That was a close series. People love it when a European team or a Western team pushes a match to 5 games, and they think it's like indicative of the region's strength overall. But like, if TSM took Top Esports to 5 games or something, no one would really care. You know what I mean? It's just it falls in line with the narrative, so people just kind of latch onto it. Sunning was able to take care of JDG, which is impressive. Then they ended up beating Top Esports, which is also very impressive. Sunning last year was just on fire. The meta was perfect for them, and you always get those kinds of teams where for one reason or another, they just click on a specific patch and play out of their minds, and that was Sunning last year. Genji against G2. So G2 just slapped around Genji. That was pretty insane. Let's take a look at that, actually. because people are like always saying like, oh, Genji are choke artists, which it's very possible. It's very possible. The thing is that they have an actual world champion on their team, so have to take that with a grain of salt, or multiple grains of salt. So Rascal, that's bad. That's bad. Oh man, losing to Jin. Yikes. Weird team composition. Man, just getting slapped around by perks on Jin. Man. And the thing is, it's crazy. The only thing that people are going to take away from this is that Genji is bad. Genji are choke artists. Genji couldn't beat G2. But they don't think to themselves, oh man, wow, Perks played out of his mind last year at Worlds. What a good player. Like, he's like so good. Like, I can't wait to watch Perks again at Worlds. It's like, no, Perks is garbage. He's the worst player ever. He doesn't have eyeballs anymore. It's funny how that happens. Obviously, Caps had a great tournament as well. But this like melted my mind, like this matchup last year. So, and this is the thing is like this wasn't a good meta for Genji because their team isn't built around Clid and BDD. It's built around Ruler. So when they're forced to play utility AD carries and then have Clid on like Lilia, Nidalee, Kindred, it's just not, that's not what we want. We want like, probably tankier junglers, but also gank heavier junglers. This is more of like a farming. This was more of a farming meta. Just really not what you wanted for Genji. So if we see something like that again, it's very possible that Genji just disappoints to extreme levels. So with that being said, let's go back through Worlds from this year. And I know I missed out a couple of the other knockout ones, but those weren't as important for this year, I don't think. So like I said, Unicorns of Love right now is plus 25,000. Some people have good feelings about Unicorns of Love because of their play-in stage performance last year, not really because of their performance on the main stage. So I think that we should downgrade our opinions of them to get back into a reasonable spot because they have the same exact roster. Then we have Psg Talon. Again, PSG played really well on the play-in stage, did not play well in the main event, and the important thing to keep in mind, since they're listed at plus 2,500, not 25,000, plus 2,500, there's like no value there. So you would have to say to yourself, the difference between PSG last year and this year is that they have River and Maple, and they also have a new AD carry. Those three upgrades should be able to make them much more competitive against a lot of these other teams from China and Korea. But right now, they're at lower odds than Hanwha Life. That just blows my mind. Like, if Hanwha Life and Psg Talon played tomorrow, do you really think that Psg Talon should be the favorite? I'm not saying that they can't beat Hanwha Life, but going into the match, Hanwha Life would be the favorite. So the odds just don't really make sense on something like that. Then we have Team Liquid. It's Team Liquid at 5,000. So same question. If Team Liquid played PSG Talon tomorrow, what would the line be? Is PSG Talon going to be like a minus 150, minus 160 favorite? I mean, that just seems kind of crazy to me. What other teams did we have to keep in mind? So Rogue, last year they fell on their face because they played against Kanavi and they played against Canyon. They were in a group with Talon Gaming and JDG. What do we expect to happen in that situation? They're supposed to lose. Fnatic played well, but they have a very different team. There's no other way to say it. That's basically it. They had Reckless. They had Whip. They had Selfmade. Just totally different team. Mad Lions had Shadow and Arome. Shadow and Arome did not play well. Or no, Shadow and Arome didn't play well. Shadow was scapegoated, and Arome was scapegoated. They both got kicked off the team. El Yoya comes in, basically plays to the exact same level that Shadow did, and now El Yoya is one of the best junglers in the world. Give me a fucking break. There's nothing that would make me happier than Mad Lions getting absolutely stomped out and El Yoya playing like garbage. Like, I don't hate Mad Lions and I don't hate El Yoya. I hate how people talk about El Yoya. That's all I hate. I don't have any negative feelings towards El Yoya specifically. My negative emotions are towards the fans who say that he's one of the best junglers in the world. That is insanity. If Mad Lions comes out and wins the championship, and El Yoya is the one creating all the advantages for the team, and is obviously the best player in the tournament, then I will come out and I will say El Yoya is much better than I thought they were. I was wrong. I promise you, if that actually does happen, you can all comment as much as you want. Tell me I'm an idiot. Tell me that I should have seen it coming, but I just don't see it right now, and I don't think that's going to happen. And hey, honestly, he could have a really good tournament and show something, and like Mad Lions lose, and I might still improve my opinion of El Yoya. It's just I really have a tough time listening to the unrealistic evaluations of European teams. It's just annoying at this point, to be honest. T1 is T1. Great team. Gen.G. People are going to remember that G2 series. I really don't think that they would ever get 3-0'd by G2 again. If you play that match 100 times, I bet Gen.G wins at like 65, 70% of the time. Dom1 Gaming, super good team. Obviously, they only had one roster change, not a big deal. Their odds are too short to bet, really, at this point. Same thing with RNG, same thing with FPX, same thing with EDG. All good teams. I just wanted to go through, remember some of the things from last year, talk about some of the narratives, remember how some of these matchups went, try to think about, like, when we start getting information from the different, like, caster desks and stuff like that, when they're talking about, like, oh, Psg Talon played pretty well last year at Worlds, they're not going to say, oh, but they got slapped around in the main event. They only kind of played well in the play-in stage, and then they kind of played like shit. But they got upgrades. Like, it's very obvious to see how they're going to talk about it, which is what you need to take with a grain of salt and try to think about the negative. Try to think about the negative stuff that could happen for them, because it's very easy to see why they would be overrated. And that's really all we're trying to do. We're trying to line up our understanding of League of Legends with the odds being offered on the sports books, with the public perception of everything. The reason why that's important is because you want to play the sports book and the public perception off of each other. You will eventually understand, like, oh, well, this team is extremely popular. The odds for this are probably inflated. There's more value on the other side. Take the bet on the other side. That's the not mental gymnastics, but that's the calculus you have to do when you're looking for things to bet on. So that's basically all I have for you today. If I said something bad about one of your teams, like I guess I do in every single video, feel free to scream at me in the comments. You seem to love to do that. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.